Well, tonight, local congregations from synagogues and churches across New Orleans will gather in a show of unity against a violent attack against Israel.
And as Rob Masson reports, local authorities are also taking security steps to protect synagogues.
At synagogues and Jewish institutions across the New Orleans metro area, beefed up security is evident after Saturday's attacks.
We're just so dazed and hurting from watching the news, from talking to our friends and family and colleagues or knowing people who were there. It's just so distressing.
Anti-Semitism has been on the rise before this. We are, in America, about 2% of the population, but we are about 65% of hate crimes.
Amid rising violence in the Middle East and increased threats in the U.S., religious leaders are calling the community together to show unity against terrorism, which has claimed hundreds of lives in Israel over the last 3 days.
The numbers, though, there are between 700 and 1,000 people confirmed killed in Israel, and Israel's a very small state, so proportionately, that's about 40,000 people in America if the numbers were the same.
The Jewish community is relatively small, and many are directly or indirectly impacted by the violence.
My nephew lost a high school friend, an elementary school friend has already been killed. Another one is missing. He's 20 years old, my nephew. He's living in Israel.
This conflict could go on for a long time, and members of the local Jewish Federation have pledged continued long-term support for a conflict many have likened to 9/11.
This isn't just tonight. This is going to be an ongoing education for people and support for Israel to help them get through this.
With attacks on the rise, local religious leaders appreciate help from law enforcement now coming forward.
One of the beautiful things about this community in New Orleans is that we often don't even have to ask. If there's violence against Jews anywhere in the world, the JPSO, the NOPD, they tend to proactively reach out to us.
And that security will be in place tonight as people opposed to the Hamas attacks gather in a show of support against terrorism. Rob Masson, Fox 8 Local First.
Tonight in Metairie, the Jewish Federation of Greater New Orleans and the Greater New Orleans Clergy Council will host a community gathering to show its support for Israel. So this event starts tonight at 7 at the Congregation Gates of Prayer in Metairie.